and welcome to Lily High on Life. Today I am thrilled to introduce you to Hilary McNevin. Hilary, hi and welcome.
Lily, thank you so much for having me. You can't not be high on life when you're in your company, seriously.
Well, thank you so much. I believe if you're going to be around, you might as well be happy.
Or work very hard at being so.
Absolutely, and it's always a choice. Now,
it is, yeah.
Hilary, one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is that you really have a positive outlook on life, as does anybody who listens to Lily High on Life. But also you have the dream job that you created for yourself that most people would love to have. You get to eat and tell people about it, and then that gives you income and money as well.
Well, I get to eat and taste and talk and represent and work with amazing clients now. So I've had, thank you for saying that, Lily, it is pretty much a fun job. Some days it's work, you know, and so you're like, big deep breath in and you've got to get up and get on with it. But I do often, pretty much every day, make sure I am grateful also for the work I do, because it's hard work, but I love it. And
Tell
I
us
feel
a
very
little
lucky.
bit about what it actually involves and how you got into it.
So, well, what it is or how I got into it, I work in the food and wine world. I like to call myself a food communicator, if you will. And I'm 55, and gosh, I went to hospitality college when I finished school in Brisbane. Now, Brisbane and its restaurant scene is really growing and very positive in the last 5 years or more. But when I was a teenager, it wasn't. It wasn't renowned for that anyway, but I loved it. I fell in love with Mum. Mum was a great cook, and there was we always ate together, and the whole idea of dining out to me was kind of this fascinating, beautiful thing. And it was also the late 80s, so Gourmet Traveller was coming up. My brother, who has since left us, but he worked in restaurants too and moved to Melbourne in the mid-80s.
Wow.
So I worked in restaurants, if you have a large Melbourne audience. Places like Petit Choux, I think, it was in Armidale. So,
well, actually, Lily High on Life goes global.
Hello, everyone, everywhere. But Petit Choux was a very well-known.
I remember it.
There you go. Yeah, he was there, and so he kind of instilled an interest in food and wine for me, because it was this really intriguing. He's in Melbourne and he's working at this fancy restaurant and he's talking about all these wines from all over the world, and the idea of looking after people really appealed to me, and I ended up doing a hospitality management degree when I finished school, and worked front of house for many years and travelled a lot with that. Worked in London for quite a few years.
What does that involve, working front of house?
Well,
because people come in and they order and they eat, and what does that actually involve, working in a restaurant front of house?
Well, front of house is all, yes, it's being a waiter, and then there's management and being a sommelier. There's also runners. There's in the sort of levels of restaurant that I was working at the time, there was the food runners and a section waiter, and then the supervisor, and then the manager, and there was tiers and a hierarchical structure, which ensured that everyone had the most gorgeous time, and hopefully customers didn't really have to think too much. They had beautiful, magical things happening around them, which is, I think, is the best kind of service you can have. And so I was but a front of house, a section waiter for a long time, then moved into management and different management roles. And then when I moved back to Brisbane, as I was saying, grew up in Brisbane, and after my time in the UK, went back to Brisbane for a few months and then decided it was 97 and
How did you end up in the UK?
Travelling. Just wanted to travel and wanted to get some work. And
because you still have a little bit of that in your accent.
Oh, I think I have isn't it funny? People say I don't sound like I'm from Queensland. My mother was a speech teacher. My father used to win awards for public speaking, and my sisters and my brother, all of us were sort of always said that we're told we spoke well. I think it's from...
Because from Brisbane, you kind of think...
Oh, no, you talk like that. Yeah. All the vowels. Yeah. It's not everyone in Brisbane talks like that, I have to say.
I know.
I know. But so yeah, and I remember growing up and when you'd practice having to do a talk for English or something like that. If I did it in front of my parents, it would be constructively criticised. I mean, they weren't me. They were just do that again, say that sentence again, speak that.
How wonderful!
And so I feel very lucky for that.
Absolutely.
And so
you were encouraged to travel after school?
Encouraged to study more so. I wanted to travel. It was never discouraged. And to study and travel and just find our own feet.
And did you go by yourself or with friends?
I did go by myself when I first left. I was mid-20s then.
Wow.
And yes, I found that's happened, and that's kind of just the way I've lived a lot. Just if I wanted to do something, I thought, well, you can't wait forever for someone to do something with you.
That's a great way to be.
I think so. I think, well, it's a part of me that I am very appreciative of.
Yes.
And I'm very thankful for.
And it's important. There are a lot of people that cannot, under fear of death, sit in a restaurant by themselves.
Oh, well,
or even in picture theatre by themselves.
They're two of my favourite things to do on my own, actually. And I don't think that means... I love finding a restaurant that you can dine alone. You and I both know that we both are good at that. That's how we met.
Yes.
Know? And I often say to restaurant owners who have those kind of restaurants, I said, I thank them for it, because it doesn't mean you're lonely. It might just mean it's your time to relax. It's a very relaxing thing to do, to dine alone. It's all on your terms. And the waiter, if they're the front of house staff, if they're good at what they do, will know if you're up for a chat or not, so they'll leave you alone or not. Yeah. And so travelling for me was about learning about hospitality and throwing myself into that, but also throwing myself into a bit of the deep end as well.
How did you get into the actual critiquing of food or writing about it? Because it was way before it was as popular as it is now.
It was something I had, when I was saying before, in the late 80s, and with my hospitality study, Gourmet Traveller was just coming up. And they were talking about these new chefs like Jacques Raymond and Neil Perry. They were just up and coming. And I read, and I was in this room in the suburbs of Brisbane, reading about these Sydney and Melbourne chefs and this exciting life somewhere else. And I've lost my train of thought.
How did you get into the writing of it?
The writing, yes. So after hospitality, being someone who read about it a lot, I always had in the back of my head, wouldn't it be great to write for these beautiful magazines or write these books and that kind of thing. My daughter, who's now 21, when I married her father, and for 3 years, he was a chef. He is a chef. We're not together anymore, and I was front of house, and we were sort of in that realm and worked together and separately. And when my daughter came along, I wanted to be at home with her, and I thought, there was a course at RMIT. It was very hard to get into, a writing and editing course. And I thought, if I can get into that, I can hopefully try to get some freelance work and also study. And I did get in, just part-time. And but part-time was good because then I had a year off to have my son, who's now 18. And it was wonderful.
But that's a great thing, because to think about something you want to do and then just go and do it is something that some people don't even realise they can do. Yeah. Just because they want to do something, they don't think they can even try it.
I think that's really key, Lily. It's to think, when I say I got into the course and these doors only opened because I kept knocking on them. I was lucky in that, but it's also, I'm a big believer in the harder you work, the luckier you get. But I knew some of the food writers from my restaurant days, and I went to a couple of them as I was sort of thinking, am I going to do this course? Do I really want to be a writer? And sent them a couple of examples of my work. And they were wonderfully harsh on me, which is what an editor, as in when I say wonderfully, like my parents as well. Yeah. It was constructive, and it was, you're not writing for, understand you're writing for an audience, understand what a writer and journalist does, and understand what your role is. And I didn't. I think I just went in with what a lot of people think. Oh, I'm just going to be a writer, and I'm just going to write all these things I think about food. But when you're a food writer for The Age, and all the amazing people that do those roles now, they're writing for their audience.
Yes.
And it's about training yourself and working really hard and committing yourself to knowing that that's what you want to do and you won't do anything else. I think for me, when you say not giving up or, just giving it a try, I didn't imagine I'd do anything else. Being a food writer for me, and then I realised I just wasn't going to do anything else. I didn't give myself any options. Does that make sense?
And how do you, now that you've done it, as you got into each new publication and new magazine and all these fabulous online things now and everything,
yes,
just walk me through that evolution for you in terms of expanding
and the role I do
coming
now.
Into
yes. Yeah, because we haven't got into what I actually how it's evolved, which is all good. So I wrote for The Age as a freelancer for 12 years, and during that time wrote for The Guardian and SBS Food and Broadsheet for a long time. They're great friends and colleagues. So are the guys at The Age, actually, and and other publications, Delicious, and contributed to a couple of books, edited a book, wrote a book about sustainable fish that I did while I was still at RMIT. And as I went along and as journalism and media changed...
Sustainable fish, was that
sustainable
passion, or was that...
It is still. I only gave a talk about it last week to a group of women and men, but at a club in the city. And... the ocean's a big passion, and swimming's a big passion, and but I love contradicting myself. I'm a big lap swimmer. I love swimming, but I love the ocean. I love swimming in the sea, but I'm not an ocean swimmer like some people who can get out there and just go at it for ages. And I love seafood, and the fact that we're 70% water and 30%
so you came
land.
up with the concept of the book? Or?
I workshopped it with my uni class, and and it was a project. It was an assignment that I sent to a publisher, and I think about 4 people bought it, and that's okay. It was 2008. That's all right. It was a great experience.
And it looks great on your resume.
Yeah, well, it's an it's like wine and food. They're ever evolving subjects. You can never stop learning about them. So, within having all those publications that I've written about, written for, I should say. It started to change. Media started to change. And I had a friend who related to seafood, and I'd met through the seafood work I'd done. He was representing a mussel farmer in Tasmania. And he rang me and he said, Phil needs some help with his social media. This would have been about 2015 or so. And I said, okay, look, I haven't worked officially in that capacity before, but how about I jump in and teach myself, and we'll do mates rates and let's see what happens. And it went from there, and people were starting to hear I was doing that. So it's
love it.
And from there it went to starting to actually talking to doing some PR. Someone said, would you help me with a press release? And so much of communications and working in that space, that press release and media connection space, is about your network. So I had a strong network from my restaurant days and my writing days, and I started doing press releases and doing media campaigns for clients. And also because of those 2 elements of experience, I could also do collaborations because I knew how to organise events. And, in a restaurant size, I'm not someone... I have friends who do extraordinary events. Melbourne Food and Wine Festival, that's breathtaking. But just, tastings and getting people together in a restaurant space or a small space. I just realised I had all these strings to my bow, if you will. I thought, why on earth shouldn't I put them together? So Turnip Media is the name of my business, and it's about content, which is the writing, connection, which is the PR, and community, which is the collaborations and telling stories. So we bring in other content work now as well. I've started... In fact, I might talk to you about this, Lily, at some stage, but it's called Kitchen Kind. So we've started talking to people about the emotion and love and ritual and tradition that food brings them in their life. And they're telling their stories, and we're sharing that on the Turnip Media website. We're only 6 episodes in, or 6 editions into that.
Sounds fabulous.
So
So with your love of food and everything else, now that you're writing about it, and it's interesting when you say you're writing, you have to know the audience you're writing for, and you write for the audience.
Yes.
How is that different? And do you still enjoy eating the food and being in the restaurants now that you write about it in a different way?
I guess the beauty of it is I write for Turnip Media, let's say. We're creating that very slowly but surely. I have a great woman who works with me, and she helps me measure and analytics and all that kind of stuff that is not my forte. Mm-hmm. So we write based on what we believe in and hope that people enjoy it or not. So we talk about our clients and share a lot of our clients' stories. If I may, it's a lot about ethical farming and people who raise things thoughtfully and beautifully or are really passionate about food and wine. I often say to chefs, look, I like to work with people who are as mad about food and wine as I am. And that's why I think, as I've told you before, something I'm really proud of is the clients we work with, because they are so hardworking.
What are your personal favourite taste things that you love?
Where does my palate tend towards?
Yes. What are your favourite foods? What are your favourite dishes?
Oh, okay, big question. Love it. I would say I tend towards more savoury flavours, ferments. I like bitter. I like salty. Just today before I came here for a quick lunch, I had some goat's cheese with fermented beetroot and some rocket leaves and some grilled chicken because that was left over from last night. But things like those sauerkrauts and fermented flavours. I love cheese, probably too much.
No such thing. Especially with the wide variety you can get now.
Exactly. And seafood is... it's funny, it's hard to say what dishes. My children are half Italian, so we have, they have the most, their father's a chef, their nonna's a chef. So I really learned a lot in my marriage about the beauty and purity of really good Italian cooking.
Yeah. And
so I would say I tend towards that, but also Japanese cuisine is something that's fascinating to me, and just also, again, purity, cleanliness, minimal preparation. Just respect of an ingredient, I think, and in season and when it's appropriate. That's important.
So I love that you enjoy food so much, because I certainly do as well. Do you enjoy it differently now, or when you're eating and tasting it and you know you're going to write about the venue and about the food?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a different experience of eating it now for you?
Yes. And it's interesting. If I hadn't answered this properly before, I apologise. But say, for example, a chef or a restaurant employs me to do a media campaign, and we go in and have something to eat there. It becomes that one-on-one, or with them and their management or other owners, of what we need to focus on, where I see the stories. And they might come to me with it's our 10th birthday, or we're opening a new restaurant, or this is happening. So we've got a hook or an angle, but when we need to build on that. So yes, because the audience I'm talking to is firstly them, and then each media outlet. So usually we send similar press releases, but sometimes I'll change them slightly, or in my introduction to a media release, because I'm talking to the media first with the view of how each one of their readerships, which are all slightly different or very different, will tap into the information I'm giving them.
Interesting.
Gosh, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. But you and I, for example, met at a fabulous brunch degestation type thing.
Yes.
And I love degestation because you get little tastes of a lot of different things, and when they're done by amazing chefs, each one has a flavour, and I just loved it. I mean, I was absolutely in heaven. And so are you enjoying that in the moment in the same way? And then you go and translate it and write about it?
In that particular context, so we met, and we'd already put the press release out, and that's a very special venue in terms of the story. They're using 10 different chefs per season, doing a dish each, and it's going to culminate in a book after 8 seasons, so 80 recipes. My view of that day for me was to work in terms of telling the story just in that moment and getting content for me and my business, and also to tag them and let them know that if they want to use any photos or what I've got, that they could do that. So I did look at it differently in that I didn't go in there to relax and chill. But I went in there to, and also be there and to let your clients know that you support them. So it really is
a very different type of thing.
Yes.
And because within the context of that, I wanted to tell everybody about every single dish, but when you're doing 10, it gets tough.
Yes.
But I'm still talking about it to
so
people.
Good. What was your favourite?
It is. Well, the first bite I had was of this amazing fish on the bread, and it was delicious. And it was only as big as, say, not even a quarter piece of toast with this fish on it, but it was just sensational. And then what happened that made it even more special to me was when the restaurant told the story. The restaurant owner told the story about the sustainable nearby farm and how not only do they use it for the freshness and the quality of their the produce that they use, but then they pass it on and work with migrants and teach them about the farming and the food.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, it's an extraordinary... can we say the name?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, great. So
plug it to death.
Oh, awesome. Square One Rialto is by the Mulberry Group, who have about 6 or 7 venues around the city. But they also have a farm called Common Ground Project, and each one of their venues puts 10% of their net profit to Common Ground Project. But Square One is going that step further, and the 10 chefs we mentioned before, they're going... they have all contributed a dish. It's not about a financial transaction in any way. It's basically they're giving a dish, raising the profile with their profile of this new venue to contribute money to the Common Ground Project that have these training programs for people who are suffering from disadvantage and women who are seeking, asylum seekers, just people who need a break and need a skill.
And it's not just giving them stuff, it's actually working with them,
training them.
Where they get trained.
It's very special. So when Nathan Tolman, who's the founder of Square One, of the Mulberry Group, I should say, contacted me about this, and he just wanted to do this, and I just jumped out of my seat. I thought this is one of the most beautiful collaborative projects I'd heard about for a long time, because as giving and as lovely and as abundant and generous hospitality is, this was just kind of a next step, I suppose. I'm trying to say it was getting all these different chefs, because it is an industry that people ask a lot of hospitality, I believe, and just donating things or giving, and this was just this wonderful circle.
Next step.
Yeah,
the next
it was really lovely.
And I'm not a shoulder. You should do this. You should do that. It's your responsibility because you've got so much. You should. I don't believe in that. I believe everybody is placed on earth for this particular time, and they do what they feel they need to do. And you should. When it's all about being happy within yourself.
Yes.
And when you do things that make you feel good, it doesn't have to make everybody feel good. So looking around that venue and looking around at the people that were at the table, there were so many different types of people. Now they all had to have some sort of money, because it wasn't a free event, and It was a little pricey, but it wasn't too bad.
Yes.
It was really very reasonable, actually, I thought. So the wonderful thing about that was that this Mulberry Group, who already have more than enough on their plate with all the venues that they've got, you can understand them getting their own farm, that's fine. But then to pass it on to people who are disadvantaged, they don't have to do that.
They don't have to do that.
They don't need that extra headache. But it was obviously something that somebody came up with so joyfully and joyously, and it's working.
Well, I would actually also say, Lily, that maybe they do have to do that because Nathan is the sort of person that he couldn't just do something without giving back. So I think there are particular types of people in this world. Oh, there's all sorts of people in this world, I should say. But people like Nathan and his team, who are a joy to work with, that's a very logical next step for me. It's not.
I get it.
Yeah, they kind of had to do it. It's who they are.
But people that don't, I wouldn't want to make them feel bad because then,
Some of us have the energy and capacity to do things like that.
Yeah.
And the resources, potentially. And if it's not about resources, it's the wherewithal or the grunt or there's something in you that goes, yep, I have to do that. I can't not do it.
Do you know what it is within you that keeps you actually motivated enough to follow the ideas that come into your head?
It's a great question because it's something that has surprised me about me, but I think over the years, I wonder, as I said before, so my children who are now 21 and 18 were 9 and 6 when their dad and I broke up. And I, for all sorts of reasons, very much did most of it on my own. That's here nor there, that's just a fact. And I didn't know I had that in me. If you'd asked me as a child or as a young woman in my 20s travelling the world and would you be a single mother and raise 2 children and have an awful lot of unexpected hardship or unexpected pain thrown your way on all sorts of levels, I don't think I would have known I had that in me. So knowing that and as they got bigger, and I had a beautiful family, 3 great sisters. My brother passed away many years ago, and my parents are beautiful, and I have brilliant friends. So every now and again, I started to listen to them because they'd say, they're that because my children are. You're doing this. You're raising them. This is you. And I hadn't looked at like that, and started to look at the kids and realised because they don't raise themselves, no, and they're none as wonderful and I just had a lovely network around me who reminded me and made me think, hang on a minute. So I slowly over time became kinder to myself about that and realised there was something in me. If I could do that, then why couldn't I do stuff with work,
Yeah. Having dated a chef, there really is something about them that is very, very different, that allows them to keep the hours and keep the passion and keep the recreating.
Yes.
And it's a very magnetic thing as well. So I understand people marrying a chef. But what happens when you really feel that you've got to break that, where you do need to go after something else and you've got little kids that are depending on you as well? What was, not so much, what happened, as much as what do you remember what it felt like and how you were able to then do what you needed to do?
I remember chefs are, I guess, like any competitive industry, highly competitive, highly creative industry. You'll find anyone who works in those sorts of fields, artists, designers, they all work all sorts of hours. They throw themselves into, a creative person will throw themselves often, unreservedly and passionately into whatever their pursuit is. And the thing about chefs is, and what I'm grateful for that I've taken into my writing world and even to, writing for espresso and things like that in The Age, you are reactive, but you're a really quick problem solver. Because if you're at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night and an order's gone wrong and something's gone to the wrong table or someone's not happy, you have to make everyone happy really quickly. Or not, and you choose to do so. So my point being that chefs live in it's a very high-pitched state through service. So to come down the other side, it's almost like they it's all or nothing all the time. So they sleep for a long time, or they go and party as hard as they work, and it can be a very fraught industry.
And what was it for you personally that you just thought?
We grew apart. Oh no! Well, it was a mutual decision, and we grew apart very much. And
so the feelings weren't there anymore.
That's right.
Or they were changed, because I'm sure you still loved him.
The feelings shifted, yes, and it was there was no happiness there, I think, as well as no. We chose not to be together, and that's a big decision to make,
especially with kids.
Yes. And it's turned, and it was initially very hard, those first few years of establishing that and going through that.
How did you go through all of that?
Well, sometimes sometimes in a very difficult way, sometimes a very sad way. For a few years after that, I've referred about it with some of my friends without getting. Oh no! I got very sad. I was very depressed, and swam a lot.
So you didn't have the impetus to sort of get up sometimes, but you swam. You chose to.
Oh, I didn't want to get out of bed, but when you've got children, you do, and also left foot, right foot is often something
Tell me about the swimming.
Oh, I get in the water, and saying that I didn't swim this winter, but I'm back in there now. I go through relationships with me in the pool. I try to do a kilometre. A 50-metre pool, I do 20 laps. I'm not allowed to get out until I've done it.
To actually get to the swimming pool even, or to get to the ocean
pool
was difficult for a time, but it was the joy of being in it that motivated you.
The minute I got in the water, it's that sort of, the minute I got in and took 3 or 4 strokes, I'd be like, oh, thank God I'm here. But it's a place under the water or swimming in the water that the repetition, I'd swim freestyle. The repetition's very meditative. The rhythm, I could switch off. Sometimes I'd think about nothing. Sometimes I'd plan the day ahead.
Did you have other coping mechanisms like that when you were in that very different place for you?
The kids, big focus on them, and I've talked to them about this, so I can say this, so much so that I kind of neglected my own care. Like, I would often just throw myself into them and just... But I guess to turn that around, the coping mechanism was trying to get extra sleep.
Neglected your own care, what do you mean?
I guess when I say I became quite depressed, the focus became on the fact that my marriage didn't work, and I was blaming myself, and also doing something that I never thought would happen. I never thought my marriage would fail, and I know a lot of people go through that because you're so full of hope and love and wishes and positivity, everything on your wedding day and beforehand, and in those, and then for so much of it, and then it starts to fall apart, and you try to salvage it, which we did, and then then there's no going back, and that is a really devastating truth to face. So it took me a while. I believe I neglected myself because I didn't want to face the truth of what was happening. So I'd focus on a swim was good because I'd focus on work, or what am I going to do with the kids doing the laps at that time, but mostly it was I just neglected the truth of what was happening in my heart and my head. And one day, it wasn't like one day I went, bing, that's it, I've got to deal with this. It was over time. I thought, hang on, I need me. I need to look after me. And so that certainly helped. And all the while I was still doing freelance writing. But just what I needed to do.
And what did you start doing to look after you?
Started saying nice things to myself. Started being the voice, our voice and our talk. So I had... there was at the very core of all of us, and some of us here, you choose to listen to it all. We all choose to do what we need to do to get through the day. But I knew there was a core of me that was very calm and focused and knew where she wanted to go. And I tried a bit of meditation, tried some breathing exercises, walking. Like swimming was good, but when I didn't want to swim, I'd just go for really long walks. And nothing a good walk can't fix, nothing a good swim can't fix, that kind of thing. And so for me, it was just really slowly and gently through all those some yoga. Yin yoga helps me still incredibly. Cooking.
Would it surprise you to know that many people don't say or even think nice things about themselves.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. We can all be so mean to ourselves. It breaks my heart because I still am, and I think I still have days where I'm like, oh.
And they don't even acknowledge the good within themselves.
And we're so, yeah, I do. I realise most of us struggle with that. Many, more than us, more of us than not, I imagine. I think it's in that part of human frailty. And the human condition to be vulnerable to ourselves and our expectations of ourselves. I learned also to be a bit calmer about the expectations on myself and the fact I was raising 2 children on my own. Sometimes those days that was enough for that day.
Yeah.
I got them fed, I got them bathed, they're asleep. I could watch the news,
How long did it take before you kind of felt that you were back to some kind of normality with you?
After about 5 years, so 2012 we broke up, I'd say 2018, 2019. And I'm not saying that whole state was a state of depression or anything. There was a big a battle within, if you will. And I started to feel great sort of 2018, 2019.
And did it change the way you parented and related to your kids?
No. And I say that quite definitely like that because what I did find was I could, as long as I talked to them about how I was feeling, they knew I'd get sad. I didn't lock myself away, didn't neglect them, none of that. But they knew sometimes I was quiet or sad, so I told them that I had been depressed, and they knew that, but it was nice for them to be able to talk. And we talk some of their friends comment to them that they're shocked that what they talk to me about. How do you talk to your mum about that? We talk about it. Nothing's off the table.
Sounds very healthy.
Well, it takes work, and it doesn't mean we don't argue. It doesn't mean we don't annoy each other. It doesn't mean, it's just, there's nothing they can do to make me stop loving them.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that foundation, give it
And it's so important for them to know.
It is. We tell each other we love each other every day. Now, I don't know if, apparently people don't do that, but maybe it's from losing my brother. I didn't get to say goodbye to him, and he died before my kids were born. So I wonder if that's sort of, I just tell them every day. I always have.
That's also something that's pretty major, to have somebody you love, and especially a brother who is gone all of a sudden. How did you deal with and cope with that? And there's no comparison with a divorce, but how do you get through that kind of grieving when everybody in your family is grieving as well?
So that happened before my brother introduced my ex-husband and I. My brother was in restaurants, and as I said, my ex-husband was a chef, and they worked together at Donovan's in St Kilda, wonderful Donovan's. And so we met that way. And my brother died 3 months before our wedding.
Oh, wow.
And I remember at one point we thought about not doing it, but it's like, no, let's do it. Let's I'm glad we did, because my kids wouldn't be here otherwise. But, and you said it's not, you can't compare the two. And I actually found that going through the pain of, my brother struggled with addiction, and it's something I've talked about often in media and given talks about and things. That pain, and it was one of those things that was terrifying, that he might overdose, but you just hope he doesn't, and he did. I felt like I could maybe deal with the divorce a little bit better than having that pain when he died, and the initial shock of that day. The pain was crippling, as in I couldn't move. Because the police came to tell me, because it was here, and I told the family in Brisbane. And I just remember, and I've had moments since in my divorce, that when I go back to that pain, I've never felt anything like it, and never will since. And I lived through that, so therefore I can pretty much live through anything. So I did get through the divorce. Maybe.
Yeah. No,
does that make sense? It was.
But there was something in you, and also, with your brother, it's every person you love is also going through a pain.
And my parents lost their child, which to me is, I wasn't a parent then, but I am now, and I think that pain would be much more significant. Losing a sibling is terrible, but I can't imagine losing a child.
And it's just a day-by-day thing. And
and you don't... you do... It does change you significantly. This is the thing. Divorce changes you and makes people very sad. But the whole dynamic, we were 5 kids, 4 girls and a boy, and we're still 5 kids. I would never say I'm not one of 5. I'm one of 5, the 4th of 5. My brother happened to pass away many years ago, 1999, and I just think you, as we've touched on before,
death is something that never, you never get over it, you were saying.
Yeah, that's it. You don't, it changes you. So there's the you before and the you after, and you don't get over it. I don't even imagine how you'd get over it. There's a wonderful thing I once heard, that grief, and this is the thing I learned that really confronted me with his death, was what grief was. I knew nothing about grief on this kind of level anyway, and grief finds a permanent place inside you and makes a home there. And I really truly believe that, because I think it's every year I always acknowledge online, let's say, his birthday and his anniversary of his death. And some years it goes just fine. I ring my parents both those days. I ring them often, but always those 2 days of the year I make sure I give them a call and tell them I love them. And so other years I just can't. I don't want to get out of bed and I want to cry, and I don't. But I have a good cry somewhere along the way, and it feels like he's just right next to me, and he was here yesterday. So your life changes significantly, and so you learn how to live with it. You don't get over it. You learn how to live with it, and that is not just me. I've talked to lots of friends or not lots, but people I know who've either lost a child or a sibling, or just someone they love terribly. It shifts everything.
Yeah, and people who haven't experienced it don't realise how profound it is.
No, they don't. And I wonder sometimes, the best thing, I still never forget that she said, the woman who said this to me at work after I got back to work after my brother had died, and she just walked up to me and said, "I am so sorry. I have no idea how you're feeling. Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Sure." And I thought, that's where she didn't say, "Oh, you'll get over it," or "Oh, it'll pass," or it was just, she knew I was in pain, and she didn't know, she basically acknowledged it by just saying, "I have no idea." And I've said that to friends who've gone through bad things. It's, I don't know exactly that feeling, but gosh, I'm here for you. And I think and people need to, who haven't experienced it, look, compassion's needed everywhere in the world, I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But, that whole "Are You OK" campaign is a fabulous one. It is. Yes, because the questions become part of our vernacular. Yeah. So, and smile, be kind to everybody, because you don't know what they've been through even 10 minutes before you came across them. Yeah, kindness takes great strength. That's one thing I've always said to my kids, going through primary school, and someone to be mean to someone, and so try to be kind. Defend yourself. Always to protect yourself and respect yourself, but be kind. Be kind to others. You have no idea what goes on in people's heads. Oh, no, you don't. You don't. And you just need to kind of approach life like that. Just know that what you can give and put forward, because then hopefully make someone feel better. Absolutely. And also finding your bliss, finding things that make you feel good, impacts everybody around you. It sure does. So it's important. You grew up, it's quite a large family. It's 5 kids and parents that were close, and you spent a lot of time together. You played together. You had dinner together. All of that was important, and you have. Obviously, and from what we've been talking about, a lot of friends and people that you have very special friends, are very close to and part of, and yet you're still happy doing things on your own, whether it's eating or movies or travelling or whatever. Talk about that just for a little bit, because for some people it's their worst nightmare, that if they can't find somebody to do something with, they just don't do it. I think there's an introverted part of me. I think we all, I can't, that extrovert, introvert, I can't really define myself by either one of them. But it's also a strength, because you're not worried about what people are going to think if they see you by yourself. And that's the part that most people get caught up in.
And I think that's a societal thing more than anything else. If imagine how free and happy we'd be if we stopped worrying about what everyone else thought of us. And I have gotten, maybe in terms of my work and what I've done and pushed to sort of do the PR and the connections, I had a great need to do it because I needed to make money. And the money, there wasn't, if you just want to work as a food writer, there wasn't enough money there to make. So I had to diversify my business. That's just a logical thing. But I also had to be brave. And then I also and with that, you just have to be brave. And when I realised I just need to put that out there, I just need to believe that I am capable. And I also like my own company, and sometimes I need to just be brave and be strong and know that a bit of self-care might mean just going and having a glass of wine and a few oysters somewhere on my own. And
oysters.
Oh, me too. And but and I think that it's just, if we all just gave ourselves that time, and just stop. Who cares if someone thinks you're a bit what's wrong with you, you're on your own. They've got no idea, they're missing out.
Yes.
I just it's too lovely a thing to not try.
And what I really need to say to you is that you have a very strong sense of self. I get from you that you know who and what you are, and you make your own decisions based on your own experience of you and life rather than what other people might think about you, which is such a wonderful thing, because for me it makes you very authentic and very real and really easy to talk to. So thank you. And thank you very much, because we've run out of time, even though I haven't run out of questions.
Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank you, really. And